If you train at home and truly care about building up your posterior chain, then there's a strong case to be made that the Tib Bar Guy Nordic back extension machine version 2 is one of the smartest purchases you can make for your home gym. Now, it's not perfect, I'll say that, but it might just offer the best bang for your buck in this product category. What makes it stand out is the promise of versatility in exercise selection, as well as the high level of adjustability that makes the notoriously difficult Nordic curl exercise that much more approachable through the use of regressions. Now, I've spent a significant amount of time testing this machine in my home gym, putting it through its paces across all of its intended uses, including Nordic curls, back extensions, hip thrusts, Bulgarian split squats, reverse hypers, and more. Now I'm going to tell you whether or not this machine lives up to its claims of versatility and whether or not the adjustability is truly helpful or an ease of use nightmare. I'll also cover the assembly, pros and cons, alternatives from other brands, and ultimately whether or not this machine deserves a spot in your home gym. So stick around for all that and more in my Nordic V2 review. But before we fully dive in, just a heads up, if after watching this video you decide to pick one of these up for yourself, be sure to check the description below. I've included an affiliate link and a discount code to help you save. Using those also supports the channel at no extra cost to you. Basically, it's what allows me to keep bringing you detailed reviews like this one. I appreciate the support. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So first up, let's talk assembly. I'd call it a relatively straightforward process. It took me about an hour, maybe a little less, but I definitely wasn't rushing. I also used the included tools, which get the job done, but they definitely slow things down, especially when you get to the tightening phase. If you've got a proper socket set on hand, I'd recommend you use that because you could probably cut the install time in half to about 30 or 40 minutes. Especially if you're comfortable putting fitness equipment together, it's going to go a lot faster. So once assembled, my first impressions were definitely positive. This machine feels surprisingly stable for something that weighs just 100 pounds, which actually isn't super heavy for this type of equipment. I'm about 215 pounds and I haven't had any issues with it rocking or feeling flimsy underneath me. At the same time, it's light enough to move around easily, which has been a big plus in my particular home gym situation where I'm constantly moving around and rearranging equipment. And it's not just the weight that makes it portable, it's the combination of the built-in wheels, the lift handle, and the manageable overall weight that makes it genuinely easy to transport around your gym. I can just lift up one end using the handle and roll it across the floor easily using just one hand. This makes repositioning or storing it super convenient, even if you're working in a tight space. In actual use, it takes up a moderate amount of floor space, about 5 feet long by 20 inches wide. But luckily, when you're done, the machine can just be stored vertically using a built-in balancing peg. And in that case, it takes up a tiny amount of floor space, just about 17 by 20 inches, I believe. It's a really handy option if you're tight on space and want to clear room for other exercises. It's honestly a must-have feature in my opinion. Another early highlight I noticed is just how adjustable this machine is. I'm going to get into the specifics on that in the next section of this video, but it's clear right away that having so many adjustment points opens up a lot of training options, as well as ways to dial in different exercises to your experience level and also to your body proportions. Overall, I like the different pads and rollers on this machine. I'm going to go deeper into those later on as well, but just know that they're thoughtfully designed with different firmness levels depending on where they contact your body, which is cool that they actually thought about that. The footplate itself feels solid when you're actually standing on it or bracing against it. There's no wobble or instability while you're on it. And the diamond plate texture on the surface gives you a reliable grip for your feet. I also appreciate the aesthetic of the footplate. They have the Tib Bar Guy logo laser cut into it, which I find to be a cool little branding detail that looks clean and professional. But one small gripe I have about the footplate is that it'd be nice if it were a bit thicker or somehow reinforced at the corners, because I notice if you step on a corner with a lot of force, it does flex a bit. Now, it's not an actual safety issue because that's not going to happen during exercise. Rather, it's just a detail that would give a more premium feel to the whole thing. If you're looking for an ultra beefy commercial grade feel, then yeah, this machine might not necessarily satisfy that craving. However, a machine like this Shogun Nord X might be more your speed. If you want everything overbuilt, that's probably the way to go. But functionally, I've gotten no complaints about the Nordic V2's stability under my weight, and with a 500-pound weight capacity rating, I'm definitely not worried about going too heavy, even on weighted back extensions. I mean, I would need at least 200 pounds of extra weight to even get close to that weight limit. Let's talk about adjustability, because this machine has a whole lot of telescoping components as well as other adjustable pieces, and that's a huge part of what makes it so versatile and just generally useful. Overall, I'd say the adjustments are pretty easy, but there is one spot that's a little finicky, and that's the top pad adjustment for back extensions. And you have to kind of sometimes wiggle it and give it a firmer push or pull to get it to move. I personally experimented with lubricating it with silicone spray, and that did make a noticeable improvement to the point where I could adjust it by pulling on just one of the handles instead of having to lift it from underneath. But even with the lubrication, grabbing it from the center underneath the pad and lifting it slightly up still makes it easier to slide. So I recommend doing it that way in any case. So that said, lubrication isn't mandatory. It's more of a convenience improvement if you find the adjustment annoying. One thing missing on the top pad adjustment is numbering for the adjustment settings. As it stands, you're basically eyeballing your settings every time you do back extensions, kind of hopping on the machine and testing the height setting, and then getting off to readjust it if it's wrong. I'd love to see laser etched or laser cut markers in future iterations of this machine. However, the angle settings on the telescoping arm, the main one, does have laser cut numbers, which is great, but they're positioned above the actual hole you're using, which can be, I guess, a little bit confusing at first. I spent a while thinking the number was hidden behind the receiver tube. A simple cutout in the receiver adjacent to the pop pin would have been more intuitive, essentially a window showing the current angle where you expect to see it. It's not really a big deal at all, but I think it would look cooler and be a bit more intuitive, at least in my opinion. All right, let's move on to the lower knee pad. And this piece supports your knees on Nordic curls, and you remove it for back extensions. Removing or installing it takes the longest time of any of the various adjustable components on this machine. To take it out, you need to unscrew the locking pin several turns before pulling it out, retracting it, and then lifting the pad off. Oh, and an important tip for this, be sure to tighten it fully after reinstalling to ensure the pad is secure under load when you're doing Nordic curls. Then there's the main adjustment arm that controls the angle of the bench right here. And it has 8 different angle adjustment settings ranging from 0 degrees or flat to 45 degrees, giving you more regression options for Nordic curls than some of the other competing machines that have fewer settings or just a fixed flat setting in the case of standalone Nordic benches. I'll note that the angle adjustments are very fast to do. It's the quickest and easiest adjustment point on the entire machine, besides maybe the leg roller. All of the adjustability that's built into this machine isn't just about fine-tuning positions for a given exercise. It's what actually unlocks the machine's versatility. So those angle settings, the adjustable pads, and the removable rollers are exactly what makes it possible to do everything from regress on Nordic curls to the ability to switch between setup for exercises like back extensions, hip thrusts, and Bulgarian split squats, among other exercises. Overall, adjustment times are pretty reasonable on this machine, at least once you get the hang of it. Going from something like the Nordic curl setup to a back extension setup takes anywhere from about 20 seconds to 40 seconds, depending on how fast you're going and how many different adjustment points you're modifying. Basically, it's quick enough that you're not going to avoid using the machine just to skip the hassle. And I think that's a critical piece for any type of home gym equipment. It has to be easy enough to actually use. Overall, the machine performs well across nearly all of its intended exercises, with really good functionality on Nordic curls, back extensions, hip thrusts, and Bulgarian split squats, but it unfortunately falls short on reverse hypers. I'm going to talk about all these exercises, but I'm going to kick it off first with Nordic curls because I think that's where it excels the most. So first off, the knee pad. It's nice and firm and gives you very solid support without any excessive cushioning that would otherwise make you sink in too much. In contrast, the top pad is noticeably softer, which makes sense though because it's meant to cushion your torso at the bottom of the Nordic movement or to cushion your hips during the back extension movement. Basically, comfort rather than rigid support is more important for the top pad. You got a similar situation with the roller pads. The shin roller pads up front are softer to reduce the pressure on your more sensitive shin bones, while the removable roller pads that lock in behind your calves are firmer to ensure that you stay locked in securely for Nordic curls. I really like that they tailored the foam densities this way. It may seem like a small detail, but it's very thoughtful and makes a difference. It's firm where you need security and softer where you need comfort. One of the biggest strengths of this machine that I'm going to continue harping on is that you can regress Nordic curls by adjusting the bench angle. You go more upright to make it easier or flatter to make it harder. This makes Nordic curls much more accessible to more people, which is great because it's an awesome exercise. As I mentioned earlier, you get 8 angle options ranging from flat to 45 degrees. This gives you tons of flexibility to dial in the difficulty to match your current strength level. Doing Nordic curls at a flat angle is brutally difficult for most people, including myself. So the ability to start at a steep angle and use progressively flatter angles lets you build up strength safely and effectively over time. Now, while you can attach a resistance band to a rack post or a pull-up bar behind you, or even to the machine's rear weight peg, I personally find that angle regressions are much faster to set up, they're easier to fine tune, and are generally more effective for tracking progress. Band assistance works, sure, but I feel like that's a tool to use if you only have a flat bench at your disposal. Dealing with bands in general is just a bit more finicky, and it's harder to replicate consistently from session to session in terms of the amount of tension used. So if you have an adjustable machine like the Nordic V2, in my opinion, why would you even bother with bands? I would say the same applies to other types of assisted Nordic curl variations, like self-assisted Nordic curls where you push off at the bottom, or the Nordic pulses. They're just not as efficient or as repeatable as angle regressions. For back extensions, I found that the Nordic V2 is stable, functional, and comfortable. It's really great overall. The back extensions are done with just a top pad, and as I mentioned earlier, the softer density of the top pad is nice and comfortable against your hips and thighs while still having enough support for performance. Now, you can optionally decrease the angle of the machine for back extensions, which would slightly shift the muscle emphasis by reducing the intensity of the lower back while increasing the glute engagement at the same time. That said, you can only reduce the angle so much before your range of motion is impacted. And in any case, I think most people are best off sticking with the typical 45-degree angle back extension and progressing by adding weight or reps as needed. The handles at the top of the frame are well placed, which allows you to assist yourself if needed, whether that's because you're rehabbing a back injury or you simply need to help yourself get back up on your last rep. If you're doing weighted back extensions, it's easy to put dumbbells, a barbell, or a weight plate by the frame below you, and it will be right within reach when you lower yourself down. Of course, you can also use a barbell on your back, though if you're doing this, be sure to go light enough first off, and also be careful getting into the machine so you don't trip with the bar on your back. Now, the cutout in the top pad is an important design feature. Not only does it serve its primary purpose of preventing uncomfortable pressure on your junk during back extensions, but it also plays a key role when you transition to hip thrusts or Bulgarian split squats, since it's designed to accommodate the hip thrust roller pad that inserts right through it. Speaking of hip thrusts, here's where I actually had an initial roller coaster of opinions when I first started testing things out. Because at first I thought the hip thrust setup was too low, and I just couldn't figure out why I only had access to 2 roller height positions. And it turns out I had the receiver upside down. And once I flipped it into the correct position, I gained access to all the height options, all 6 of them. And that allowed me to extend it up to about 18 inches off the floor, which basically matches the height of a competition flat bench. So with the correct setup, hip thrusts work great, and I actually have 0 complaints now. In fact, I'm just very impressed with it overall, because I went into it thinking that the hip thrust setup might have just been a gimmicky feature to make the machine seem more versatile, but it's actually notably better than using a flat weight bench in my opinion. It's more stable, allows for better movement due to the roller, and it lets you kind of zero in on the specific height that you want. The same setup for hip thrusts also works well for Bulgarian split squats. Bulgarians feel stable and secure on this machine thanks to the roller pad, which provides a more comfortable and ergonomic surface for your back foot compared to, say, a flat weight bench that you'd probably be using otherwise. Instead of having to rest your foot against a flat static edge, the roller pad allows your foot and ankle to naturally shift around it and move with you. You can also easily adjust the roller pad height to match your leg length, and there's enough of a range in the pad height to satisfy almost all user heights. My only minor gripe is that your toes may very lightly touch the upper pad at the top of the range of motion. You won't actually be restricted, but it's just something subtle that you might notice. Also, if you already have a roller attachment for your power rack, you don't really need this feature to do Bulgarians, but it's great to have if you don't have that attachment already. Now, on the flip side, reverse hypers are unfortunately the weak link when it comes to the Nordic V2's different exercise capabilities. So I tried setting up for reverse hypers both with and without the roller pad installed above the top pad, and neither setup was comfortable. There's just a lot of pressure concentrated on your hips or lower abdomen, and without a flat surface to distribute your torso weight evenly, it just isn't ideal. And on top of that, you're angled a bit downwards, so there's blood rushing towards your head, which isn't great. Loading is also limited to band resistance, which is connected to the lift handle, and that just makes getting consistent tension a little tricky. So technically, reverse hypers are doable, but they're uncomfortable, they're awkward, and they're definitely less effective than a dedicated reverse hyper machine. So personally, I won't be using it for this purpose, but to be fair, from what I've heard, a lot of the competing machines also fall short on this capability. Beyond the core movements for the Nordic V2, you can also do things like QL raises, YTWL raises, Powell raises, and various core and ab exercises. And you can even do preacher curls, and I'm sure there's other ones too. But that said, you should consider these as potential bonus capabilities and not at all the main reason to get this machine. I wanted to take a little time to quickly cover a few of the smaller design features that I think are still worth mentioning. First off, there's a pivoting bracket that's used to hold the machine at the 10-degree angle setting. And there's actually a magnet that lets you clip this out of the way so it doesn't catch when you're lowering the machine to the flat position. It's a small but thoughtful detail that makes things just a little bit more seamless. Next, there's moderately grippy vinyl for both the top pad and knee pad. It's not as aggressive as what you'd find on some weight benches that have deeper indentations in the vinyl. And honestly, grippy vinyl isn't really even necessary because you're not going to be sliding on any of these exercises. But I do find it handy when setting my phone down when the bench is angled, so there's that. Luckily though, this particular vinyl is easy enough to clean without collecting dirt or debris like what would happen if you had too heavily textured vinyl. Then you have the rear peg, which isn't just for balancing the machine for vertical storage. It's also designed to be used as a weight plate holder to increase the stability of the unit during loaded movements. I should note though that I've never actually felt the need to use it during any of my workouts so far, but it may come in handy if you're doing super heavy weighted back extensions or if your machine is just sliding during hip thrusts because you have a slick floor surface. And lastly, the machine also has rubber foot covers This obviously helps to protect your floor from scratches and also should help your machine from sliding around too easily. The only downside though is that the rubber feet will slide off if you are dragging your machine sideways. But other than that, they do their job just fine. All right, let me quickly summarize the pros and the cons of the Nordic V2, starting with a rundown of the pros. So first off, it's excellent for Nordic curls, back extensions, hip thrusts, and Bulgarian split squats. Those are the major wins in my opinion. Next, doing Nordic curls is so much less daunting because you get 8 angle settings from 0 to 45 degrees, so you can gradually progress over time instead of jumping straight into the hardest version of Nordic curls. Also, it's surprisingly stable despite its lightweight design, and it's highly portable thanks to wheels, the lift handle, and the manageable weight, all of which make moving it around pretty easy. Another big pro is that you can stand it upright and save space that way, and it's stable when it's upright, so no need to worry about it tipping over. Next up, the varying padding densities are well thought out, and that helps for both comfort and performance depending on the padding. Another thing, there are smart little design details kind of sprinkled throughout, things like magnetic bracket holder, the dual purpose weight peg, grippy vinyl on the upper and lower pads, as well as the junk relief cutout on the top pad. Lastly, it's definitely a solid value at the current price of $600. On the flip side, here's the cons. So first off, reverse hypers are uncomfortable and inefficient on this machine, so I really don't recommend it for that. Next up, I'd say there are some adjustment quirks. So the top pad has some friction, the angle number placement could be a bit more intuitive, and the lower pad can also take a little extra time to add or remove. Another thing, there are no markings for the top pad adjustment, and that forces a bit of trial and error when you're setting up for back extensions, which can be annoying. And finally, while it's designed well, it's stable and it's functional, it's not exactly a beefy commercial grade machine with ultra premium details. So if that's what you're after, then this probably isn't it. Before we wrap up, I want to briefly compare the Nordic V2 to some of the popular competitors, including the Shogun Nordex and the Freak Athlete Hyper Pro. Now, I haven't personally tested either of these machines, but what I can do is provide a high-level overview of them based on the general sentiments of the home gym community. So, the Shogun Nordex, for example, is known for being incredibly heavy-duty, and it's just overbuilt, which is awesome if you want an ultra premium commercial grade feel to the equipment. It's generally highly praised and is actually more compact than the Nordic V2 with generally smoother adjustments as well. But it only has 3 angle adjustments versus 8 for the Nordic V2. And it also is twice the price. Then you have the Freak Athlete Hyper Pro, which is marketed as a 6-in-1 machine, capable of Nordic curls, back extension, has a GHD setup. There's reverse hyper capability and decline sit-ups and hip thrusts as well. And you can actually boost it to a 9-in-1 machine with add-ons for leg curls and leg extensions and belt squats. And it even has sort of a makeshift upper body station. It also has more adjustability than the Nordic V2 with 10 levels of incline from 0 to 45 for Nordic regressions and 3 levels of decline for -3 to -15 degrees for Nordic progressions. So basically, if you're looking for even more versatility and adjustability, this one may be the way to go, but be sure you're actually going to use those extra capabilities because the base unit itself is about 100 more than the V2. And if you start adding upgrades like the leg developer and the belt squat, the price is going to keep going up by as much as an additional $500. Ultimately, the best choice depends on your specific training needs, your available space, and your budget. So, Is the Nordic V2 actually worth it? Well, for me, it definitely is. And that's mostly because it does such a great job on Nordic Curls with the different angle options that give you access to regressions in very small increments. And it's also super solid for back extensions with great stability, and the machine overall has great build quality for the price. And just the value overall for the price is great with this machine. Now, you also get the ability to do hip thrusts and Bulgarian split squats and potentially some other bonus exercises. But the bread and butter of this machine is definitely Nordic curls and back extensions. And as I mentioned throughout the review, reverse hypers are where it falls short. So if that's something you were hoping for, then this machine may not be worth it in that specific case. Now, if you found this review useful and you are thinking of buying the Nordic V2 for yourself, definitely check the description below. I've included an affiliate link and a coupon code to help you save and support my channel at the same time. If you have any other questions about this machine, anything that I missed, definitely leave them below. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.